Hey, Goba here. The brand new planar ornament sets were just released, two brand new DPS sets. So if you are looking for a DPS upgrade, Wild 9 could be great for you to farm. They aren't fully universal though, both excelling in two different niches, but when they are fulfilled, they are the best in town. I'll review both, explain how they work, and who can use them. If this video helped, let me know below with a like and sub, and share to anyone that needs info on these new ornament sets. Let me know in the comments too, what you think of these new sets. Anyway, let's begin. First planar set is Acheron themed, Izumo Gensei and Takama Divine Realm, and I'm sorry to any Japanese watchers or speakers. It will first increase attack percent by 12% just like the first half of the Spacing Station and Firmament Frontline Glamour sets. This isn't that strong though. The second part is the real deal. When you enter battle, if at least one other ally matches the wearer's path, you now get a 12% crit rate increase. This is a bit like Penacony for your DPS, but path-based rather than element. Now gaining 4% crit rate and trading 15 to 20% damage on certain abilities for 12% attack seems a bit suspicious, and I at first had my doubts. However, that crit rate is still very valuable, and attack percent is only super saturated on a unit like Jingliu, who also saturates on crit. So for nearly any inert or rutilant unit, this is an upgrade if you can fulfill the condition, but we'll see that's pretty hard to complete for most units. As for any crit DPS that ran Glamour, this is just a better Glamour in the right conditions, considering you now have no speed restrictions, and the crit rate is just way better than the damage percent. And for any damage percent heavy units, like the new Acheron, this attack percent is also very welcome. So when paired with a matching path unit in your team, this planar on a crit DPS will be best in slot most of the time. Now it can range from a bit worse in the case of Jingliu than her usual best in slot, a bit better, or all the way up to a 5% increase to their next best in slot. So it really depends, but what this means is provided you are bringing your DPS with a matching path, you can just now farm this set constantly and not have to worry about inert or rutilant depending on what your DPS runs. But the path restriction is a very rough one, so it's not as universal as you'd hope. Anyway, let's review our options. So for the destruction path, our only common pairing is Jingliu and Blade. Jingliu would rather run rutilant, but it's still fine on her, I guess. However, Blade would rather run inert or rutilant due to his attack percent scalings being very weak. The only other destruction pairing I guess are Lune and Misha, but I don't think it's too great of a pairing. Maybe Arlen can run it with another destruction, but at that point we're veering off meta. For the hunt path, our only pairing is Topaz and Ratio, who are a very lovely DPS duo. So both of them can fulfill this passive for each other and they won't mind being in the same team. The passive is great for both of them as well, both of them wanting and lacking natural attack percent, and as we know they are both crit DPS, so we are all good. For erudition, things get a bit easier when considering dual DPS compositions, but those aren't too amazing until Pure Fiction, and unfortunately the next set is just better for Pure Fiction. In Memory of Chaos, you can run something like Himiko Hata or Argenti Hata. I even ran Qingshui Hata back in the day with Yukong. I wouldn't consider them top tier teams, but if you do run them, then this set can be nice. The thing is, if you do run these teams in both Memory of Chaos and Pure Fiction, you win from both planar ornament sets in this world. For Nihility, we actually have some value. Acheron of course wants to be paired with at least one Nihility unit, making this her best in slot. She also has a ton of damage percent in her kit and light cone options, so the attack percent is very welcome. The dot units won't be running this unless you run crit dot, but those are usually run with Harmony units. Finally, Walt and E2 Silverwolf can use this, considering they run debuffers in their teams, but also if they run as sub DPS to Acheron. In Walt's case, he can also use it if running as a hybrid DPS sustain for Acheron. Preservation and Abundance units do not dual up with their own path usually, and they aren't traditionally built for crit. Harmony units do run together, but we don't have a unit that puts the harm in Harmony just yet. Maybe if we get a crit rate buffer that scales on their own crit rate like a reverse Bronya or Sparkle. So to summarize, this set is just purely for some dual DPS cases or Nihility crit DPS with fellow debuffer allies. The next planar set is Sigonia, the Unclaimed Desolation. This planar set is pretty disgusting at max value, giving us 48% crit value. It gives us a base of 4% crit rate, then 4% crit damage every time an enemy is defeated up to 10 stacks. So that's 40% crit damage total, and I know some of you are going feral right now hearing that. Now you don't need to kill the enemies yourself for this, they just need to be defeated, so for sub DPS do not worry. And no, it still won't be better than running Broken Kill on Sparkle or Bronya, though it is closer than Celestial Differentiator, which is still the worst set I've ever seen. Now of course, again, there is a restriction that stops it from being absolute god tier, the amount of enemies needing to be defeated. This is going to be best in slot on any crit DPS for Pure Fiction, that much is obvious, as we get this stacked in 2 to 3 sets of enemy spawns, all before wave 1 ends. That means in those next 2 waves of Pure Fiction you'll have the maximum 40% crit damage buff. This could be used okay in normal content too, but only if the stage is suited. For example, summoning type bosses like Ebon Deer could see you using it. Though if it isn't maxed, say you only hit 6 stacks before the boss, this set is just going to be a worse Rutilant Arena or Inert Salsato. For some numbers, this can be a 2% increase for units with already high crit value, to a 7% if you're struggling with a lower ratio on a unit like Qingxue with no crit light cone. This can also let you stack up some more crit rate or attack percent on your units and compensate for lower crit damage with the planar set buffs. But that would mean a lot of relic swapping. Either way, farming this to help Pure Fiction may be nice if you're not fully clearing the 12 stars for rewards. It is backloaded in crit gains, so that first wave will have to count. So to summarize, you have Izumo for those matching path compositions, but for now it's a bit niche and unfortunately not very universal. And then you have Sigonia for maybe summoning type fights, but in reality, it's 99% of the time for Pure Fiction. I'm happy they brought some new DPS planar types, but if they were this niche, I feel they could have been a bit better. 7, in my opinion, remains the best set to farm for a very nice and universal crit DPS set, as well as an amazing support set. Bod 8 is also nice for the dodge units and energy support duo combo. Anyway, let me know below what you think of these sets. Thanks to all my amazing YouTube members, thanks for watching and have a good day.